All right, everybody, welcome back. We are going to go through another 2-round mock draft today. I know we just did a 3-round one over the weekend, but there are some teams that have made trades to get back into the first round, multiple first round picks now. Free agency starts tomorrow. So I just wanted to pop on here and do a quick 2-round mock draft and kind of go through a different scenario here. We obviously saw and you'll see it when we get into the thing. The Ravens no longer have a first round pick, right? The Rams traded one of their first round picks for Trent McDuffie. Obviously, the Ravens got Max Crosby. So we've had change up in the immediate. Literally, since I put out another mock draft, we have already had 2 picks in the first round change. We're not going to do any trades for this one. Not that the Raiders would be fielding offers anyway. They're going to go Fernando Mendoza. It makes the most sense. By the way, the website I'm using is Draft Professor. Go use the Draft Professor, make an account. You're basically mock drafting against other people that are also mock drafting at the same time. So it kind of tells you what players are being, mocked in which positions. It's kind of a cool thing. I help them out. I do a podcast with them on Thursdays right now, covering just whatever positional group or whatever we're talking about 1 week at a time as we get now, 6 weeks from the NFL draft. Next pick here, we're going to go to the Jets. So it's interesting that the Jets got a new general manager, came from the Broncos. Obviously, the Broncos were high on Nick Bonito. I actually think David Bailey here is the pick. He's another guy who's lanky, long, fast, and can get to the quarterback in a hurry. They need an edge rusher to build around, especially with the trade of Jermaine Johnson. We saw James Conner get a new contract, so I had previously mocked Jeremiah Love here at 3. I think they just stick and go best player. They could trade down if a team wants to pop up in front of Tennessee. I'm going to go with Arvell Reese here. They need an edge rusher. Why not? He's the next best in the class. He's obviously got ceiling through the roof. So Arvell Reese, the pick at 3. At number 4, I'm going to stick with what I was thinking about sticking with what I was doing before with Carnell Tate. I just think Ruben Bain in that defense with Saul. Give me Ruben Bain. I think he's the most physical defender in the class. Number 5 is where it gets interesting, right? Number 5 is where it gets interesting. Nobody's hiding it. The Giants love Sonny Styles. We're going to keep Sonny Styles here at 5. At 6, I think you go best player available here. People could say that's Maui Nioa or Monroe Freeling. I think it's Carnell Tate. I would go Carnell Tate. They need a receiver. I know they're trying to look at going after Mike Evans in free agency, so look for that over the next couple days. But right now, Carnell Tate, best player on the board for what they need on offense. Got to get some weapons in the receiving room. At number 7, Caleb Downs, I think, is the pick here. They only have 1 pick in the top 2 rounds, but I think you just go best player available here. You might look to trade down, gather up some more draft capital if a team wants to jump in front of the Saints. I don't see that happening. Maybe if one of these edge rushers falls, obviously that would be ideal, right? You get either David Bailey, Arvell Reese, or Ruben Bain, but right now they're just going to have to take the best player available, and that's Caleb Downs. Same thing here for the Saints, right? They have a multitude of needs. Running back is 1. Jeremiah Love's going to go here at 8 again. Now it's where it's get interesting because at the Combine, we saw Makai Lemon maybe falling down draft boards. We don't really know. I personally love Makai Lemon. I don't really see an issue. I'm not in the interviews though, so I'm only going off of what I heard. That being said, I think Jordan Tyson, if he's healthy, is the best receiver in this class. That's the issue though. His health has been what's plagued him his entire college career. Get him in Kansas City. They need a wide receiver. Jordan Tyson at pick 9. Now it's where it gets interesting because the top 3 edge rushers are off the board. Caleb Downs is off the board. And the Bengals need defense. So do they go corner? I don't know about that. I think they just take Dylan Thieneman here. Dylan Thieneman went off at the Combine. I mean, he had a crazy razz, crazy athleticism, blazing fast 40. For me, you just got to get the best player that can help your defense. The Bengals have horrible safeties, like terrible safety play. So Thieneman is an instant starter for them, can range multiple coverages, can be down in the box, can be back deep in the secondary, roaming around the defense, and it just gives them a piece on the back end that they can build around. Now you go best player available here. We know that the Dolphins' offensive line isn't very pretty. They obviously need wide receiver. They're probably just going to roll with Quinn Ewers because the 2027 quarterback class is pretty good. You could go Mansour Delane here, but I think you can get a corner on day 2 of the draft, and I don't know that there's a dominant cornerback that needs to be taken this high. So I'm going to go with Maui Noa here, sticking the Miami tackle or guard, right? He can play either one. They're going to find a spot for him on the offensive line. They have to build up the front of their offense. Now at number 12, this is where the great debate begins of which cornerback do you like? Do you like Mansour Delane? Do you like Jermod McCoy? Do you like Avion Terrell? I personally love Jermod McCoy. He just doesn't have any game tape. I'm gonna go with him here. I think if he tested his pro day, he's a no-brainer for a top 15 pick. At pick 13 here, we've seen it before. I'm not trading here. I'm not sure that they would trade here, but if there's an organization to get a guy like Mekhi Lemon, who's a little bit of, maybe didn't do so well in the interview process, whatever. I think getting him with McVay makes a ton of sense. Obviously, they lost their second round pick, but their first round pick, which was pick 29. Now they get Trent McDuffie. They're working on inking him to the largest, most money for a cornerback in NFL history. So that will be interesting to see. Right now, the Raiders are on the clock, and this is the pick that they, got. They obviously traded for when they traded Max Crosby to the Ravens. They need defensive tackle. I'm not comfortable taking one here. Peter Woods is pretty good, but I think he's going to fall in the draft. I mean, I think he's kind of, maybe he came in a little bit undersized, a little bit underproductive. I like his hands. I think he's a really good and talented player. I think they might just stick with the best offensive lineman because they need interior offensive line, and Spencer Fano measured arms pretty short, but he can still move around the offensive line. He's played right tackle in college. He can obviously go inside, took some center snaps at the combine. So I'm going to go Spencer Fano here at pick 14 for the Raiders. Now you just go best player available again. Yes, the Buccaneers need linebacker, but I think they can get that in round 2. Mansour Delane sitting right there. They need cornerback. They're going to go cornerback. I know they have Benjamin Morrison. I know they have Jacob Parrish. Jacob Parrish is more of an inside corner. They've lost their corners in the last few years. They lost Carlton Davis. They're going to lose Jamel Dean. So they need an outside cornerback, and Mansour Delane from LSU is the pick. Now at pick 16, you're looking at the board and you're thinking, okay, you're the Jets. Well, David Bailey's off the board. Man, we could have probably taken Sonny Styles and maybe got a guy like Keldrick Falk to go with him. They obviously need a linebacker. They need a cornerback. Do you go Avion Terrell here? I think it may be a little bit rich for Avion Terrell. How about this? How about we go Ty Simpson? Ty Simpson, the quarterback. The Jets have nobody, right? They have no future. They have no hope. They have no nothing. Sorry, my boy Steve. But the Jets are just a bad organization. That being said, they have now executives that are coming over from the Denver Broncos who helped build up the Broncos to a team that appeared in the AFC Championship game. You got to go get your quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, you have no chance of winning. Ty Simpson's a guy that can develop too. They can bring in a guy. Then they can focus on their other first-round picks next year. It's like, hey, well, if they see in camp they don't think Ty Simpson will work out, so what? They can go get another player. I know Jets fans are going to hate this, but if Ty Simpson's the pick here, you kind of just got to hope that he develops under this new management. I know ownership is heavily involved there. It's an interesting situation. More or less, you just got to grab a quarterback. Ty Simpson's there. I don't see him falling to round 2, pick 33. So you either have to work a trade, which we're not doing in this mock, or you kind of just got to go get your guy. So Ty Simpson goes at 16. At 17, we're going to stick with what we did in the other mock I just posted the other day. I think Monroe Freeling fits here. They just got rid of their left tackle. So it's a perfect fit and a guy that I think Dan Campbell will absolutely love. He's not a polished product, though. I think people are propping him up the board more and more because he's a true left tackle. And there really aren't many of those in this class. We see Maui Noa. We see Fano. Those are right tackles that are probably going to slide inside in the NFL. The true left tackles of this class are really Monroe Freeling and Caleb Lomu. And then you have Ian Nachor or whatever from Arizona State. He's a right tackle as well. Only ever played right tackle. All right, Vikings are up here. This is where it gets interesting. I think the Vikings go tight end here. I've been saying it for a long time. When J.J. McCarthy was at his best in college, who was his number one target? It was Colston Loveland. Okay, you got to get a tight end. TJ Hawkinson just restructured his deal. He will be a free agent after this upcoming season. You got to get a tight end that can learn and develop. And once they have no more TJ Hawkinson, they have an athlete at a premium position that they can shape and mold and train and coach into a really, really, really good NFL tight end. Now at pick 19 here, if we're looking at the board, What do we like here? I think if I'm looking at the board here, I'm going to go Keldrick Faulk. I'm a big Sawyer Robertson fan. I watched the Auburn Baylor game live, and I was like, holy cow, Keldrick Faulk. He's obviously a little inconsistent, but he's 20 years old. The man can't even buy a beer. Okay? Can't even buy a beer. 20 years old. He's going to play more of the 3-4 kind of defensive lineman, but he's great at run stopping. Upside through the roof for pass rushing. So we're going to go Keldrick Faulk here at 19. At pick 20, now you go ahead and you look at what the Cowboys need. They need a linebacker. They just got a cornerback. I think Anthony Hill could be the pick here. Shout out to Ray GQ, says he's a top 10 player in the class. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I do think he's a first rounder, and I think he was kind of someone that was at the back half of the first round and has been slowly creeping up, and people are watching his tape and they're like, okay, he's really good. He's athletic, he's big, he's long, he's lanky, he's fast. Like, he is a guy who can make a difference on a defense, and he's pretty young. So we're going to go Anthony Hill here at pick 20. Pick 21 comes around. The Steelers are on the clock, and I'm going to do something that I've been doing, and I think it's going to make the most sense. You need a guy that can complement what DK Metcalf is to your offense. They're really high on Roman Wilson, but he just simply can't stay on the field. Another guy that JJ McCarthy had when he was at Michigan. So I'm going to go Kevin Concepcion here with pick 21. I think he's a good wide receiver. I think he's just a guy that with the ball in his hands is dynamic, and they don't have that in their offense. Easiest pick of all time, pick 22, Vega Ione. They need an interior offensive lineman. If he's on the board at pick 22, Chargers fans, you will get a guy that is a day one starter, absolute beef up front, going to help in the run game and help protect Justin Herbert. That would be an amazing pick. For the Eagles, I am going to reach down the board a little bit. Someone told me in the comments that they don't have anything at safety right now. They might hit that in free agency, but right now, Emmanuel McBeal-Warren is on the board. I'm going to hit that for the Eagles. I think that makes a ton of sense. We just talked about true left tackles. The Browns just traded for someone from the Texans. You have to pardon me, I don't remember his name, but he is going to play right tackle for the Browns, is what they're saying. So I'm going to skip the Mauigoa. Obviously, he could go 6. I don't think he'll go that high. Caleb Lomu, pure left tackle, upside, great footwork. I'm going to go him at 24. Now the Bears are on the clock, and they have a pretty easy decision to make, in my opinion. Peter Woods has fallen down the board. They need a defensive tackle. He makes the most sense here at 25. Now at 26, you see where other people are ranking CJ Allen right here, and I'm going to fall victim to this as well. Yes, they need a wide receiver, but they just traded for DJ Moore. Omar Cooper is more or less the same style of receiver as DJ Moore, in my opinion. R. Mason Thomas is a really interesting case here, but I think what CJ Allen brings to you defensively, from a mental standpoint, from an experience standpoint, you just can't go wrong drafting Georgia defensive players. So this is where it gets really interesting, because Omar Cooper is on the board, and I really think that's great. I just rewatched all of his tape. I have him as a second rounder. I'm not as high on as consensus is on him, and I think a big reason for that is there were some times he just had some simple concentration drops. It's really just a drop thing for me. It's not a ton of them, but they're often, and they're normally on big plays. He could have had 30, 40, 50-yard gains, and the ball just hit his hands, and he just didn't hang on to the ball. So I'm going to go with an unconventional pick here, but I think it makes sense given what the 49ers kind of have offensively. They have Ricky Pearsall. They're going to lose Brandon Ayuk, but some of the offensive pieces, like, they're not really, in my opinion, they're not really building for this next season. They're kind of building for 2 seasons from now, because George Kittle is obviously going to be working back from rehab. I don't know that defense is there ready to compete quite yet. I'm going to go with Chris Bell. I think Chris Bell, if he wasn't injured coming off that injury, he would be a surefire first-round pick. So if they take him, it's almost like a draft and stash. Not really. He'll probably play later in the season, but not someone they need to contribute from day one, even though they do need wide receiver. At pick 28 here, if I'm the Texans, I'm probably sitting here looking at the board thinking, man, do we get a starting right tackle? Do we get a starting interior lineman? Or do we get one of the freakiest players in the entire class, 6'6", 328-pounder, Caleb Banks, interior defensive lineman? man, they have a good edge rush. They need help on the interior line simply because they're hitting free agency or they're older players. So I'm going to go with Caleb Banks here at 28. 29, now it gets interesting, and this is unfortunately, for me as a Broncos fan, the worst pick that I could see happening. I love Avion Terrell. He forces turnovers like no other. He's going to go here at 29. It's a perfect fit for Spagnolia's defense in Kansas City. With pick 30, I'm going to go a little unconventional here, and it's mainly because he is, I would say he's my guy. I don't know how you turn on the film of Jacob Rodriguez and you don't see an instant starter at linebacker. The Broncos just re-signed Justin Strnad today, but he's a core special teamer as well as he's grown into a pretty reasonable starting linebacker. I don't know if they bring back Singleton. It sounds like they're working to, but even so, the linebacker behind them is Drew Sanders, who just has not been it. He has not been able to stay on the field. So I'm going to go Jacob Rodriguez here at pick 30. I know we need offense. I think we can get that on day 2. Give me Jacob Rodriguez. Give me a leader of the defense at the end of the first round. Pick 31 here. Again, another pick that I have mocked before, and I'll probably continue to mock. It's interesting that the Patriots just got rid of Stephon Diggs. They have no real wide receiver help, and Denzel Boston is a guy that kind of fills a specific role for the Patriots, and I like that for Drake May. That being said, Omar Cooper's he's fallen far enough. Yeah, they need running back. There's not one here. Kenneth Walker hit free agency. Charbonnet's coming off an injury. They only have George Holani on the roster. Cornerback is going to be a position that they could really target. I mocked Cisse to them in the last mock. But because Omar Cooper fell here, and they still need wide receiver, they're not going to be bringing back Rashid Shaheed. Cooper Kupp is getting older, right? They have Jackson Smith and Jigba. They need another complement to their wide receiving room. I'm going to go Omar Cooper Jr. there. Now with the Jets back on the clock, we're going to go cornerback here really quickly. We're going to go Keith Abney. He's off the board. Now at pick 34, okay, we got to look at what we did with the Cardinals. We took Arvell Reese in the first round. It looks like they need a linebacker and they need some offensive tackles. I think with Ionichor right there, I don't know if I pronounced that right again. I still didn't look that up from the last video if you watched that one. Okay, he's going to go right there at pick 34. Pick 35. Now we're looking at a team that needs a wide receiver. They need a lot of help across the board. Defensive tackle, cornerback. They're losing L'Jarius Sneed, I believe. So with Ruben Bain going in the first round, I think best player on the board here, probably Colton Hood or Brandon Cisse. I'm going to go Brandon Cisse here at pick 35. Raiders back on the clock. They need a defensive tackle and one that can dominate in the A gap. That's going to be Caden McDonald. He can stop the run. He is one of my favorite players in the entire class, even though I do think he'll end up being probably between pick 33 and 45, maybe between pick 40 or between 33 and 50. Like, I think he's a top 50 player. I'm not sure he goes in the first round, but he's a really good defensive tackle. Now with the Giants here, we went Arvell Reese in the first round. Now we got to go cornerback. And with 2 on the board here, we have Chris Johnson and Colton Hood. It's kind of 50-50 for me. I like Chris Johnson. The coaching staff was at Kent State, so I still follow them on Twitter. I've seen them retweet stuff about how his work ethic is just different. I know Colton Hood is a really good player. I'm going to go Chris Johnson here at pick 37. Pick 38, easiest pick of the entire draft. Pregnon falls right to them in their lap at pick 38. Again, back to the Browns here, who the Browns need players. They need offensive linemen. I know they need a wide receiver, Chris Brazzell, and they already grabbed Carnell Tate, so they don't need to grab Chris Brazzell. I think they just go with the best upside of maybe any player in the whole entire class. That's Caden Proctor. Give them two offensive tackles. It will not matter. They need them. They need an offensive line in front of them. And people are saying Caden Proctor could be an all-pro guard. I think he can stick at tackle. I just think he needs, to get in there with an NFL coaching staff and get to work. Pick 40 here, another easy one. Staying in the state of Missouri, we'll take Zion Young here. Edge rusher is something that the Chiefs desperately need. We've already taken Jordan Tyson and Avion Terrell. If this draft happened in real life for the Chiefs, I would be very disappointed as a Broncos fan. I'll just say that. Pick 41 here. The Bengals are back on the clock. They need defensive linemen, specifically an edge rusher. Shamar Stewart, didn't really work out last year too much, but you see flashes. So we're going to go TJ Parker on the other side. Now we're at pick 42 here, and the Saints need a cornerback. They need an edge rusher, and I don't really see I don't really know if there's anybody there I want to take. Edge rusher, though. R. Mason Thomas is sitting there. Or we could go Colton Hood. They just got rid of Lattimore. Or no, someone got rid of Lattimore. He's not on the Saints anymore. I think he was on the Commanders, maybe? I don't remember. That's not the matter that we're discussing here. Cornerback or edge here. Cassius Howell, just a undersized, but just has a vicious mindset for edge rushing. R. Mason Thomas, obviously, is an absolute freak. Colton Hood, good corner. People are saying he can go in the first round. I think he's more of a day 2 guy, although I've seen him mocked as high as 13 to the Rams. So, let's go Colton Hood here. Give him a cornerback, and we'll see how the board shakes out. Now, with the Dolphins on the clock, you'll have to pardon me for scrolling because I forgot who we have taken. I know where I want to go with this pick, and I don't know if it'll be popular or not, but we're going to go Keontae Scott here. He had a phenomenal college football playoff run, keeping Miami in the state of Miami, pairing him with teammate Francis Mauigoa. You get a slot cornerback, day 1 starter, absolute beast. We already got an edge rusher for the Jets, so we're going to go to the safety room here. We see AJ Halsey sitting right there. Boom! Easy pick for the Jets if that is how the board falls. Right now, with the way the board has fallen, we need to go to the interior of the offensive line. Now, me personally, I have Jennings Dunker and Keelan Rutledge ranked a little bit higher than Chase Bisontis. It seems like the Ravens are interested in getting an interior offensive line, but they just got Max Crosby, so they definitely don't need to go edge. Cornerback, it's kind of seemed like I wouldn't take a cornerback here. It's just the way the board has fallen. It's interesting. You could go tight end. They really need a tight end, and I think a guy like Sam Roush might make sense here. Man, I think you kind of probably look to trade down. Honestly, if I'm the Ravens, just give me Jennings Dunker. Give me a physical body in the run game, who also played tackle in college, so he can move around the offensive line a little bit. Second round here for the Buccaneers. Like I said, linebacker we could get in the second round. Boom, Josiah Trotter is sitting right there. Now you go edge rusher for the Indianapolis Colts. You could go Jake Golday here if you want to go linebacker. R. Mason Thomas is sitting on the board, though. I'm going to go with R. Mason Thomas. I think he makes a lot of sense here. He's just a freak edge rusher. Similar to Nick Bonito. I know the same school comp. Not really a comp, just they play the game similarly. I know that is technically what a comp is, but regardless, it's because schools like to get the same type of player. That's just how they recruit. It is what it is, but I like R. Mason Thomas to the Colts. Defensive tackle needed for the Falcons. Stick in Georgia, grab Christian Miller. Now we go to a team that needs a safety and a slot cornerback. If only there was a player in the class that was amazing at both. Yep, enter Kamari Ramsey, USC. Played safety for most of his college career this last year. Injuries to slot cornerbacks across the entire roster went down, and he moved in seamlessly and was just getting rave reviews by his defensive coordinator. So much so that they didn't even want to move him back to safety when he switched to slot cornerback. So he's going to play in multiple formations, and the Vikings need safety help. Obviously, in this specific mock with Downs and Thieneman not being there at pick 18 in the first round, they still get a quality safety in the second round. Now, someone told me in the comments of my last mock draft that the Lions would never take an undersized edge rusher. And then I saw a video of Cassius Howell, and what an absolute dog. I saw him fighting with the offensive lineman, John with the offensive lineman, talking. That's just a guy Dan Campbell's going to love. Give me Cassius Howell here. I know he's undersized. I think this might be the same exact mock draft I just did for the Detroit Lions. I don't even care. If they get Monroe Freeling and Cassius Howell, major win for Detroit. Pick 51 here. We are looking at a team that needs a linebacker. And among other things, tight end is another option they could go here. Obviously, I just mentioned Sam Roush. I think there's a better linebacker on the board than any of the tight ends. So we're going to go with Jake Golday here at pick 51. Now we move to the Packers. Just lost Rashawn Gary, I believe. So they could use someone on the edge. They also need a tight end and a corner and a defensive tackle. So they're kind of an interesting situation. If I'm them, a guy that I really liked at the combine that's not even on the board right here is Dalen Everett. I'm going to go Dalen Everett. He's 6'1", ran a 4.38. I mean, just tore up the combine. day one starter if he can get on. Like, I mean, if he wins the job, which I don't know how he wouldn't, given the rest of what that defense looks like. I think Dalen Everett can come in immediately and contribute. It'd be a great use of the first round pick, and I don't even think he's reached his near potential yet. Now for the most city of Pittsburgh pick of all time, we're gonna go D'Angelo Pons. I mean, what an absolute beast! They need cornerback. He's gonna play on the outside, but man, I think you can move him in the slot, move him around. He's that physical of a player, that physical of a tackler. Now for the Eagles here, everybody expects them to move on from AJ Brown, me included. Come to my Denver Broncos, please. I'm going to go with an interesting pick here. I love Malachi Fields, but it's trending like he's going to be a late day 2 pick. And we're only doing 2-round mock here. Mel Kiper is all over Chris Brazzell, which makes me a little hesitant, but you can't ignore the size, speed, frame, production across multiple levels. I'm going to go Chris Brazzell here as a replacement for AJ Brown for the Eagles. Now you get to the Los Angeles Chargers here, and if they're sitting here and Lee Hunter's on the board, they already went interior offensive line with the first one. They're going to want to build in the trenches. Give me Lee Hunter at pick 55. Cornerback, you can see Julian Neal has been ranked here. He's a guy that didn't run a blazing fast 40, but he ran fast enough. So we're going to go Julian Neal here from Arkansas, measured like an absolute freak. Best player on the board here at edge is Akeem Mesidor, and the interesting thing with this age thing with Akeem Mesidor for me is, he's going to be 25, great, but he's also one of the most productive, one of the most vicious edge rushers in this entire class. If he wasn't 25, he'd be a surefire first-round pick. Bears are in a win now situation. They have Caleb Williams under a rookie deal, and they want to get as far as they possibly can. Mesidor would be an instant contributor. Great pick. Now we get to the 49ers. They went wide receiver in the first round. I think they go and attack the edge here. And I think you get a guy like Gabe Yakis, who is very young, very, very explosive. And I think he's a guy, he's a guy you could definitely take to, boost your defensive line. However, I just scrolled down and I remembered a mock that I did kind of prepping for this. And I like Caleb Tiernan here. People think he can be a guard. I think he needs to stay on the left side. He can replace Trent Williams. He can play anywhere on the offensive line, but he's 6'8". I just don't know how you can be the interior lineman for Brock Purdy when you're that tall. So I think he can actually play tackle, and I think that's what I would do here if I were the 49ers. Now you go back to the Texans on the board, and with the Texans pick here, they probably look, and I have to go look at who the Texans have taken. Emmanuel Pregnon so far, and then Caleb Banks. So really, they could use a tackle here. Blake Miller is on the board. I think he is probably the next guy up for them. I don't really love Blake Miller. I think he's fine. Let's go. We already got an interior offensive lineman, so the most pure actual tackle left, I guess has to be Blake Miller. So Blake Miller off the board at pick 59. Now we're back to the Bears at pick 60, and for this pick, we've already went edge, we've already went defensive tackle, so you either go linebacker or safety here. Most likely, for me, Jalen Kilgore is a guy who can play in multiple situations, can play in the slot, can play deep, can move around, really. He could man-to-man your best wide receiver if you want him to. I'll go Jalen Kilgore here at pick 60. Now this is where it gets interesting for the Rams, because the Rams are looking at a potential situation where they already went wide receiver. They still need cornerback, but the cornerbacks on the board aren't my favorite. That being said, I do like Malik Muhammad a little bit better than consensus. I didn't love his tape from when I summer scouted him, but going back and rewatching him, seeing some of the fluidity he moved with in the drills at the combine, I think I'll go Malik Muhammad here at 61. Now at pick 62, the Broncos are on the clock. Need a running back. I think they'll address that in free agency. Need a tight end. And ultimately, I think tight end is the direction we go. So Sam Roush is an interesting one. He is a freak. He's 6'6", 250 some pounds. He underutilized, bad quarterback play at Stanford. But Eli Stowers just leapt out of the gym. I could see a world where Sean Payton is enamored with Eli Stowers, so we're going to go that route. Now, Patriots on the clock here. Well, I'm going to go with one of the guys that raised his stock the most at the combine, and that's Malachi Lawrence here. We're going to go with him at pick 63. And then rounding it out after taking Omar Cooper Jr. in the first round, going to take one of my favorite linemen in the entire class, and that is going to be Keelan Rutledge. I don't think Keelan Rutledge makes it to 64. I think he's much better player than that. Surratt, I think, makes it. Basantis, I'm a little lower on the consensus. Some of these guys, nose tackle, tackle in college, can't really play. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Cage Casey at guard. Zachariah Branch, no thank you, unless you're Mel Kiper. Yeah, we're going to go Keelan Rutledge here, wrap out this draft. And then yeah, you can see everybody's picks here. So I like this about the draft, Professor. You can really see which teams took which, and then you get the full view of both rounds here. So we went Mendoza, then Bailey, Reese, Ruben Bain, Sonny Styles, Carnell Tate, Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, Jordan Tyson, Dylan Thieneman as the top 10. You can kind of scroll through here. Some of my favorite entire drafts, I think what the Raiders would do if they were to get Mendoza, Fano, and McDonald would be really, really good. Another team I think has, and it's just teams that have multiple picks, but getting an offensive tackle in Caden Proctor in the second round that has all pro potential at probably more likely guard, but again, a huge body. Caleb Lomu, pure left tackle. You get a wide receiver. I think that's a really, really good draft. Again, I talked about it, but the Chiefs, if they were to get this draft, I mean, absolutely perfect draft for them. One of the best wide receivers, pending health. One of my favorite cornerbacks in the class, and then you get an edge rusher that some people are projecting to go in the first round. Let's see. Another team's draft that I really like, the Chargers, Vega Ione and Lee Hunter here. I think that would be a really beneficial draft for them. And then I will go to the Seahawks and Omar Cooper Jr. as another piece of that offense for Sam Darnold, and then Keelan Rutledge, a day one starter on interior offensive line. But just wanted to kind of go through a different mock draft scenario, especially now that free agency starts tomorrow. So this is all going to change again in a week, and that's the beauty of mock drafting is it is never over no matter what time of season we are in. So thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.